and I'd like to welcome Dr. Wayne Wright from Purdue University and hear what he has to share. We all work with that TESOL methods course, especially in US teacher preparation contexts. So I know that I was thrilled when I found his textbook because it was finally not an adult ESL methods book trying to be used in a K-12 program. And we've been using it in our program since it came out. We've been really happy with it. So I'm thrilled that you took the time, you were able to speak with us. So I know Wayne is going to put up his PowerPoint and kind of walk us through some of the things he has to share today. So welcome, Wayne. Thank you.
All right, and thank you very much, Laura, and thank you all for being here. And I really do hope to make this more of an interactive presentation. So I'll be sharing a lot of what we're doing at Purdue, and then I hope to hear from you guys in terms of what's going on at your different universities, and hopefully we can learn a few things from each other. So let me see if I can go ahead and pull up my PowerPoint presentation here. All right, can everyone see that? Yep, Laura, is it showing? Okay, good, good. All right, so let me preface this a little bit by saying that I've only been at Purdue since 2014. I spent 10 years at the University of Texas at San Antonio, where we have a very robust program and department. In fact, we had an entire department of bicultural bilingual studies with about 16 to 18 faculty members, all focused on bilingual education or ESL. And we had a very robust undergraduate program and a master's degree and a PhD. And since coming here to Purdue University, I've learned it's not quite that way at institutions around the country. And so it's really a growing program here at Purdue, which is one of the reasons why I came here. So I'll tell you a little about our college and our program here at Purdue. Then you can kind of compare that to how things are at your university. And then I'll give you some specifics in terms of the undergraduate course and some of the things we've been doing with that. So first, our College of Education here at Purdue is actually one of the smaller colleges here at Purdue University. We're a very heavily STEM-focused campus, so we're quite small compared to engineering and science and agriculture and other programs. But we do have a very good college. We have two departments. I'm in the Department of Curriculum and Instruction, and we have 7 different program areas, including language and literacy, science education, math education, learning design and technology, career and technical education, and so forth. And then within and then I should note too that we have about 866 undergraduate teacher education students. And so those are those elementary education, teacher education students that are strictly within our college. When we look at secondary teacher education, then of course we have a lot more students than that. So my program area is the language and literacy program area, and that's further subdivided into elementary education, where they focus on reading and English language arts. English education, which would be our secondary education folks, and then English language learners with 3 full-time faculty members in that area. So you can see that our ELL program is a sub-area of a sub-area, so quite a bit, very much a very small program within a larger department. Okay, so as far as our actual courses that we offer in the area of English language learner education, we have 1 undergraduate course that's part of our elementary education program, and that's EDCI 370, and it's called Teaching English as a New Language. However, we have a much bigger online graduate level program with 5 graduate level courses, and you can see them listed there. And essentially, these are courses in things like second language acquisition, linguistics, your basic ESL methodology, and language and content area instruction. And these 5 courses are used for multiple purposes. So we do have teacher licensure, and so these would be in-service teachers who are throughout the state of Indiana, and they come in either through cohorts or on their own. They complete these 5 courses, and then they're able to add an EL licensure to their existing teacher license. We also offer a graduate certificate program, and so those can be taken by students who are already here at Purdue or anywhere else in the country or even around the world, and they can take these courses and then receive this graduate certificate. And then specifically our online or our on-campus students who are either getting their master's or their PhD in language and literacy will take these courses as part of a concentration area of the language and literacy degree. So fulfilling multiple purposes. Some of the challenges that are here at Purdue is currently we do not have an undergraduate ELL teacher certification program. We only offer the general licensure for elementary education and for the different topics in secondary education. And unfortunately, our undergraduate students have historically been discouraged from taking these ELL online graduate courses. The feeling is they should graduate and then come back and then do it. And another huge issue is our undergraduate course is only 2 semester credit hours, which is a big problem because that means we have very limited time with them. We are working to increase that to 3 semester credit hours. Another challenge is that we do not have currently an ELL methods course for undergraduate students who are seeking secondary teacher licensure. So they're getting no training whatsoever in terms of how to work with ELLs when they want to be a middle school or a high school teacher. Another challenge is in Indiana, they thought it would be really smart to take away teachers' incentive for getting a master's degree because they no longer get a pay raise if they earn their master's degree. And that's really killed our master's degree program enrollments, as you can imagine. Also, our rural location is not necessarily ideal for a face-to-face program that's targeting in-service teachers, which is why we went with an online format for that graduate program targeting current in-service teachers. And we have a lot of demand for those online courses. Indiana is starting to get serious about certifying their teachers and working with English language learners. And so we now have large cohorts coming in from around the state. And because of that, we've focused a lot of our attention and energy on those online courses and developing that program, which means that we're giving less attention to that undergraduate course. And oftentimes, because our time is needed to teach the graduate level courses, then those undergraduate courses tend to be taught mostly by graduate students. So some challenges that may or may not be similar to what you have. So let me focus now on that undergraduate course. Again, that's 370, Teaching English as a New Language. Typically, we have 3 sections in the fall and the spring, and those are generally capped at 20 students, so about 60 students every fall and spring. We meet twice a week for 50 minutes, usually Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday. And then there's a field experience component where 4 times during the semester, they'll go out to a local school for about 2 hours each, and those are usually done on Fridays. We have 1 school that's here in town that we go to, and we have 2 schools out in rural towns that are about 30 to 40 miles away. For the readings, some of you may be familiar with my textbook that Laura was referring to earlier. It's Foundations for Teaching English Language Learners, Research, Theory, Policy, and Practice, now in its 2nd edition, just came out last year. We also have the students, we're a WIDA state now, and so we do quite a bit with the WIDA standards and the other resources that WIDA makes available. And of course, supplemental readings from journal articles and other textbooks, maybe a chapter or 2 from here or there. And some of the major assignments, of course, participation, discussing the readings on reading discussion boards through Blackboard, quizzes, which I did through an iClicker kind of system. Then they would do a concept map and an end of course reflection. It's kind of a pre and post assessment. And then of course the field experience. I will note that I've taught this course once since I've been here during my 2nd semester. So that was last year. And I pretty much inherited the syllabus and I was told I couldn't change it much. So needless to say, there's some work that needs to be done there and we're working on that. So I'm not presenting the course as I would have liked to have taught it or as I would have taught it when I was in Texas, but you can kind of see the limitations had within the structure that was given to us. So for the field experience, I mentioned there's 4 visits. The first visit is strictly an observation where they focus on oral language use in the classroom between the students and the teacher. And then I added an assessment of the students' oral language using the solemn R. And I'll talk more about that in a little bit here. On the visit 2, the observation is on literacy. And so they're focusing on how the students are using reading and writing in the classroom. And I added to that a reading assessment of the student using a writing record and also doing a writing evaluation of the writing using a rubric. Then on visits 3 and 4, they actually plan and teach lessons. First a language arts lesson and then a math and science lesson. At the school, they're assigned to 3 to 4 students. One of the things the course stipulated was that 2 of those students had to be ELL students, and then the other 2 students could be English-only students. I personally was uncomfortable with that, but again, that's how I inherited that, because I'd like to see our students getting more practice directly with English language learners. Then after each of their visits, they would create a report or their lesson plan reflection, and those have to be submitted in connection with each visit. Okay, so I want to talk specifically now about my textbook and how we have a comprehensive companion website to go along with this. And this is really designed to help teachers who are instructors of such a course to be able to bring in some of the resources that are mentioned in the book into their courses. And it's also very helpful if the course is being taught as a hybrid course or as an online course or just to supplement it with some technology. So the companion website, for example, has discussion questions, research activities, review activities, and other resources such as activity sheets for in-class use, various assessment forms that are mentioned in the book, and then links to videos, Pinterest boards, websites, and other online resources. So I think it'll help if I can actually show you the website. So I'm going to do a little switch here, and I'm going to come over to the web. Okay, so hopefully you can see the website. So this is what it looks like when you log into the companion website. Some of you may be familiar with this, others it might be brand new, so I'll walk you through it. You can see the 11 chapters of the book here. And when I click on a chapter, chapter 1, and then I come over here to the discussion Q&A, and these are the actual discussion questions that are listed at the back of the chapter. And so rather than setting up your own discussion board like on Blackboard, this is designed to save instructors time by just giving the students access to the companion website. And a student can come over here, choose a question, and they can type in their answer here and post it. Now, what's kind of cool about this is when your students do this, they're not just seeing the other students from their class, but they can see all students from all around the country who are participating in this companion website. So they can see kind of what's going on with these issues in places outside of their own state or area. So they could, for example, drop it down here and choose a specific state, or they could indicate a student in a particular course somewhere if they wanted to filter it down that way. Okay, and then going back, for research activities, also at the end of each chapter, there are suggestions for extension activities for the reading. And so, for example, conducting an interview with an ELL student or with a teacher or observing in a classroom. And I always try to have some kind of online research activity for those who might be teaching the class in an online format, and maybe there's not a field experience component. Anyways, instead of just doing the assignment, submitting it to you, getting it back, this is a way for them to share it not only with you, but with other people as well. In a way, it can also create kind of a database of these issues, again, from across the country. So that's something that's kind of fun. Review questions. This may look like an online quiz, and I guess it could be used that way, but really these are meant to be kind of review activities. So in this particular one, they read a description of a student's English, and they have to decide what level of English proficiency they're at. Once they complete this, they can submit the answers, they can see their score, and they can redo this as many times as they want, and then you as the instructor will be able to see their score and how many times they've taken it. So for each chapter, there's usually some of those things. And then under additional resources, activity sheets are meant to be used in class. And so that same kind of review activity that we saw, you could do this with small groups in your classroom, for example, and there's a form there for that. One of the things mentioned in the chapter is getting kind of sociolinguistic information about the student. And so they can download a file of the form that's shown in the book and use that for their assignment. And then these are the links to the various websites that are mentioned specifically in the book, videos that are mentioned, professional organizations, etc. And I'll also note too here that the key terms here are linked to the online glossary. And so if they're not sure what a term means, they can jump at it from there. They can get immediate access to the forms that are shown in each chapter by clicking on forms. And then there's specifically apps, mobile apps that are aligned to each chapter, and they can find the links to those apps here. And then finally, let me show you what access you would have as an instructor of a course. If you go to the professor control room or control panel, you can see your courses that you're teaching there, and you can select on a particular course. You can see all the students who are registered for your course. And if I want to see any specific work that was done by a student, I can just click on that student's name. And perhaps I want to see Jordan, and I can look to see all of her review or discussion questions that she's done. And if I want, I can arrange those in ascending order from chapter. And then I can have the quick access to all the work that she's done that way. Okay. Let me go back to my slideshow. Okay. So I encourage you to take a look at that. Again, this is a free resource that's available to the instructors and the students. When they buy a new copy of the book, they get an access code to sign up for the site for free. Okay, and then one other resource I just want to show you quickly is something that we're developing here at Purdue called the Purdue English Language Learners Language Portraits, or what we're calling the Purdue ELPs. And this is meant to be a free online resource for both pre-service and in-service teachers to practice assessing ELL students' English language proficiency. And so we've created dozens of quote-unquote virtual ELL students. And for each student, we have language samples, including videos of their oral presentations or interviews, or they're completing some kind of oral language task. There are videos of them reading text aloud that can be used for reading assessments, and then comprehension questions and answers that they gave in connection with that reading, and then samples of the students' unedited writing. And then we also provide the tools needed to assess those language samples. So we have the student oral language matrix, revised, running record forms, and writing rubrics. So again, let me show you that site real quick. Come back over here to share screen, and I think I need to come back into here. There we go. Okay, so this is the site when you first log in. And if we come over here to the ELL portraits, I can choose if I want to see students at the elementary, middle school, or high school level. So let's go to the middle school level. And these are some of the middle school students that we have so far. I'm going to choose Alonzo here. So as you come on here, you can read a little bit about Alonzo, get some kind of sociolinguistic and cultural background about Alonzo, how long he's been here, what languages he speaks, etc. And then here you'll see the oral language samples. And so this video is an excerpt from an interview we did with him. And this video here is an excerpt from a presentation. Let me just try playing just a couple of seconds of this for you.
One of my family's traditions is on our birthdays, we go on a surprise trip.
Okay. And then after the students watch those videos, they can download this student oral language matrix revised form, and then they can rate the student's oral language in the areas of comprehension, fluency, vocabulary, pronunciation on this Likert scale of 1 to 5. And they can make notes here about the student's strengths and areas of improvement. And after they complete that, then they would reflect on the student's overall strengths, needs of improvement, and then what oral language development activities would be beneficial for the student. Okay, and then when they're ready to do a reading assessment, okay, there's videos here of Alonzo reading a couple of texts. And then as they read that, they complete the running record of his reading. And so they click here on download the running record form. The text is all ready for them to print out, and then they can put on their different check marks and keep track of the errors and self-corrections as he's reading. And then the evaluation form, again, would give them a chance to focus on the strengths, what types of errors, and do that miscue analysis, and then talk about specific mini lessons, strategies, or activities that would be beneficial for him. And let's go back. Give that a second to reload. Okay, and then finally, I should also note too that when we did these readings, we would ask them some comprehension questions. And so not only can they get a measure in terms of their decoding, but also in terms of their comprehension of the text. And then finally, we have samples of the writing, and then they can download the writing rubric, and again, focus on the strengths and the weaknesses, and then reflect on what that might mean for instruction. All right, I'm going to stop sharing that, and I'll go back to my PowerPoint. Okay, and that's basically what I had to share. What I'd like to hear now from you in terms of your programs is I'm curious to know, are undergraduate teacher ed students required to take an ELL methods course? What kind of readings are you using in the course? What are the requirements for your courses? And then how do you structure your field experiences? All right, thank you. I'll hand it back over to Laura.
Okay. That was so good. That's such good resources. I'm like dying to go through that now. But I want everyone to know that you are muted. If you'd like to just say a question, you'll have to unmute yourself. Or if you'd like to, you can type a question down in the box. And I think Wayne was asking us about a TESOL methods course in the undergraduate level. And I'm just going to answer to fill the moment while people are orienting to what they're going to answer. So for example, I'm at Hunter College, which is part of the City University of New York. So those of you who may know CUNY, we have a number of different four-year colleges: Queens College, Lehman City, Brooklyn, and Hunter. And we have no undergraduate TESOL. We only have graduate TESOL students because New York State requires a master's degree for permanent teacher certification. And we thankfully still have salary differentials beyond the master's and up through a doctorate. So thank goodness. That was shocking to me. But wouldn't you encourage teachers to get more education? But whatever. So we have thought about an undergraduate program. We don't have one, but we of course have a TESOL methods course here. That is the first course, but we do not in New York, believe it or not, have a required course on ELS for content teachers. There is no requirement for content teachers to have any coursework on ELS in New York, which doesn't make any sense. But we have many, many, many content teachers who decide to get their master's in TESOL or just decide to get additional certification in TESOL to add on to their license. So those folks are taking methods as well. What are other people's situations or contexts for offering the TESOL methods course? Anyone want to post your context in the chat box? If you hover over the bottom, there's a little bubble. You can type your situation, or if you'd like to just unmute.
And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them as well about what we're doing or trying to do.
Absolutely. To give everybody a little chance to post a question or provide a response. Is anyone having trouble? Are you having trouble unmuting yourself? Definitely just type into the box at the bottom. I hear somebody. Maybe? No? Anyone? Hello? This is like turn and talk. Everybody turn and talk now to yourselves and then come back and say something to us or type in the box. What would you like to know about, or what's your situation with offering? Do you teach ESL methods or TESOL methods where you are at? Let's see. I'm typing there. I'm going to call on somebody. Okay. How about Tabitha? Tabitha, are you there?
I will be in a second.
Yay!
All right.
Help us out, Tabitha.
Wait, can you hear me now? Oh, good. I'm already,
Yes.
You unmuted me. Okay. Well, I'm teaching in Maryland, and here it sounds quite similar to New York and Indiana for that matter. So we don't have an undergrad TESOL program. We only offer master's degrees, and many classroom teachers choose to get their master's degree in TESOL. So we do have an undergrad minor that's kind of intended to flow into our master's program, but is also catering to students who are secondary ed majors who will be working with ELL. So that's kind of a good option for them to be able to minor in TESOL.
And Tabitha, I'm just curious, is your TESOL program strictly K-12 or it's really K through adult?
Well, it's somewhat K through adult. The TESOL methods class is also intended to fulfill the state reading requirement, so it's very focused on K-12.
Okay.
And we're kind of moving as a program more towards teaching. We're more focused on K-12 than adult or international TESOL.
I know when we were at the University of Texas in San Antonio, we had about a third K-12, a third international students who probably plan to go back and teach English in their own countries, and then about a third were either working adult ed in the United States or plan to go teach overseas. And so that was a constant battle trying to balance and making sure we're addressing the needs of all three audiences.
Yeah, and I'd actually be curious to know how people do that in different contexts, because that is something that's complicated about TESOL. We have all these different student profiles that are looking to learn a little bit, different techniques for teaching TESOL.
Mm-hmm. So just one basic thing we did was we had differentiated assignments. And so, for example, in the course I just described, there's a very clear field experience where you have to go to an elementary school and work. And that's very much driven by the state licensure requirements. However, in Texas, if they weren't going for that teacher licensure, they just want to go teach in China or something, then there was no reason why they couldn't go work with a student in an adult ESL program or in an IEP program, or even like work with their roommate who's from Korea or something. So we try to be very flexible in terms of what their career goals were and make sure that the types of experiences they had in our classes, and that's the kind of things that they plan to do as an instructor.
Yeah, we have a number of different tracks within our program. One of them is the adult, focus on adult learners. It also leads to a master's in TESOL. Of course, it's not state teacher certification. And it shares in common with K-12 a few courses, the SLA, the LING, sociolinguistics, and assessment. But everything else is specialized for the adult track, the methods, the curriculum, the teaching of the skills, the practica. But it's a much smaller program than the K-12 group. Someone here has posted about Indiana University, does have an undergrad program. It is a licensed edition aligned with TESOL standards. Can we access your PowerPoint? Got on late. Well, the whole webinar is recorded. And so I'm going to be posting the link back to the Teacher Ed Introspection listserv probably tomorrow, because it takes a little while for the file to render. And then you'll have the whole thing. You'll be able to see the PowerPoint in the webinar. Does that sound okay? Rather than you having to share your PowerPoint.
That'd be fine. And I do hope you weren't in the traffic accident.
On the way to
hope you're
the
okay.
webinar. We want to have everyone healthy here. Anyone else want to pose a question or thought, something while we have the fortune to have Wayne here with us?
So Christine, I see you're in Hawaii. I'd love to hear what's happening there in Hawaii, if you don't mind sharing.
Let's see. Christine, can you hear us?
Hi.
Hi.
Hey.
Yeah, and we at the UH University of Hawaii, we do have BA, MA, and PhD programs. However, they're more geared for adult learners.
Mm-hmm.
We do have a couple of professors though who are interested in high school and mostly high school learners in writing, and so we do offer practicums and some courses specializing in that area, but nothing for elementary, which I think is something that we really do need to have here, because we have so many such a diverse multicultural context here. But however, the College of Education does offer some courses in second language for elementary.
Good. Are you able to collaborate at all with the folks in the College of Education, or are they really kind of two very separate programs?
They're separate, but some of the students from that program do take second language studies classes.
Yeah, very, very similar here at Purdue. We have a very strong second language studies program. And yeah, same thing. Very often our students will take classes there. Their students will take classes here. But somehow we got this idea that they do adults and we do K-12, and we're not supposed to mix that. But I think we're going to shake that up here in a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We have a couple other responses just about context. Michael was talking about, this is Minnesota. I think that was St. Cloud State University, and a certificate and a minor. The whole idea of the certification, adult, and certificate programs, that's sometimes interesting too, because we get this sort of TESOL methods in a certification program versus a certificate. Do you have that issue? Do you find, Wayne, that do you all offer a certificate? And if so, where would a course like your textbook sit? Or is that something that you don't see happening so much on the certificate side?
Yeah, so actually we have the graduate certificate in teaching English language learners. There's no licensure attached to that. So a lot of our international students will complete that. Yeah. Or we may have people who are outside of Indiana who don't need Indiana teacher certification, but they just want it for the education only. And so in one of the graduate courses, we do use my book also. I use it in the English language development course. And what's nice is when I use it at the graduate level, we're able to go in a lot more depth in terms of some of the research activities that are at the end of each chapter and kind of take it up a notch.
Yeah.
I also find too that when I get to use it with current classroom teachers, they're much more excited about it because it's their daily life that they're living and breathing every day. Whereas sometimes with the undergraduate students, depending on their attitudes and where they're from, they might think like, well, I'm not going to have any English language learners in my class, so why am I taking this? And
Wow.
But much different from the person who's been teaching for 20 years and all of a sudden half their class doesn't speak English fluently. So
yes.
I've had some great response from current teachers in the graduate programs.
I'm wondering, I know we have another question coming up, but just to finish off what Michael posted is about working with SIFE students and refugee students. Do you have any thoughts around, is that addressed in this version of your textbook? Are there things, resources that you think might be helpful when you're learning basic methodology, but you have these kind of specialized populations?
A big emphasis in the book is that the ELL population is not a homogeneous group. And so really trying to identify the different types of ELLs and then trying to determine what their needs are and different instruction accordingly. So try to do that through the different examples that you get throughout the book, and also some of those research activities are really designed to, work specifically with the classroom and determine those differences. So yeah, it's a big challenge there.
And so there's a couple other statements. One is about, do you find, are there particular areas where there's a lack of focus? For example, elementary, primary grades assessment. Question. Also talking about non-native English speakers in your program. Anything you want to tackle?
So where there's a lack of information, do you find that in their case? Yeah, so assessment is interesting. I mentioned that our online course, our graduate level course, there are 5 courses, and actually the 5th one is brand new, and that's on a little bit in each of the 4 other courses, but not in depth. And so we had to add that to our program. So after that, for the first time last summer, and it went really well. And so we're in the process of modifying our program to make that 5th course a requirement. Also note too that just our College of Education as a whole was lacking in terms of, even for general education teachers, providing them with sufficient background on assessment. And since we're now gearing up for the EdTPA, there's a lot of emphasis on assessment within the EdTPA. So there's even talk about making my assessment course for English language learners a required assessment course for all of teacher education candidates. So I might be expanding that course a little bit to be more inclusive of all students.
I think there's a big gap there in terms of teacher preparation and formative classroom-based assessment for ELLs.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the language assessment courses that still exist on TESOL programs is really not what classroom teachers need to do and use. So I think that would be really valuable. Do you want to talk about the non-native speaker teacher candidates that are in your programs and helping them address their own language needs and the training piece? Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, one thing that I found really interesting, so of course, yes, we do have quite a few second language learners in our classes. I would say that when I was in Texas at the undergraduate level and also at the master's level, we had a large number. I mean, UT San Antonio was a Hispanic serving institution, and the majority of our students were first-generation college students, and we had a very strong and active bilingual education program. And so a lot of the students who were in our courses were people who learned English as a second language, and depending if they had come over in elementary school or high school or were born in the U.S., had varying levels of English proficiency. Here at Purdue, our undergraduate teacher education students are predominantly white and female. And once in a while, get a second language speaker in there. Our colleges got to do a better job of recruiting minority students to go into teaching, and we're starting to do that a little bit. But really what we're seeing is the diversity is at that graduate level, primarily through our international students. And some of them come with teaching experience in their own countries, some of them don't. But one of the things I found that's been really beneficial in both settings are those discussion boards, such as the ones I showed as part of my book. In a typical class discussion, if you have 20 to 30 students and you ask a question, the same 5 or 6 people are going to dominate the discussion, right? And you'll have several students who tend to sit quietly and for whatever reason don't feel comfortable sharing. With the discussion boards, I require everyone respond to the discussion question, and then everyone has to respond to at least one other student. And what's great there is those quiet students who never say a word in class will write really long, detailed, and fantastic responses, sharing their own experiences as language learners. And that really helps the other students who really haven't had that experience of being a second language learner to really get a good sense of these issues and how they play out in real life. And so I really value that diversity of having the second language learners in these types of courses. Mm-hmm. And of course, we get to debunk the myths too about how an English teacher should only be a native speaker of English, and talking about the challenges and the benefits of having a non-native speaker of English as an English teacher. So,
about 1,000%.
Thank you. And I'd be curious if Michael's willing to turn on his mic. I'd love to hear your thoughts about how that's happening at your university. So, Michael, you there?
Michael, unmuted.
I'm here. I don't know if my volume's on.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go for it.
You can hear me? Okay, right. Yeah, the MA TESOL students. There we go. Okay, yeah.
Excellent.
The glasses are reflecting. So, but no, working with the MA TESOL students is a lot of fun. Having that 60 to 70% international and/or second language learners who are from the United States is really enriching in the classes.
Yeah.
It's a different perspective. And I was just typing in. It sounds like my world Englishes class that I teach.
Oh, cool.
We talk a lot about those very issues, and it's quite fun. Yeah. So anyway. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. We have someone here who's actually calling from Lebanon. It would be Sama. Let me just unmute. Sama, would you like to tell us a little about your context? Typing in. We unmuted you.
Hello.
Hello. May not be able to hear us well. She said hello. She's typing. I'll mute her for a second. I was really interested in the website with the cases. How did you manage to get that thing up there? That looks like an incredible. Oh my gosh. Was that a grant you all had? I'd love to make one of those over here. How did you do that?
Good question. So as part of my startup package here at Purdue, I did get a little bit of funding, including funding to hire some research assistants. And so my first couple of semesters, of course, I hired our language and literacy students to help me with my research. And then the last semester that I had this funding, I realized that we had these students in our department with experience in learning design and technology. And I met one student who actually had expertise in doing filming in the classrooms and had been a former bilingual teacher. And another one that had some experience in web design. And said, let's go out and do this. And through one of my colleagues who has extensive contacts with the local schools, we were able to get some teachers who are willing for us to come and work with their students. We provided a release form, so we had permission to use their images and their videos online. And of course, we changed the names. We fictionalized the bios a little bit to protect their identity. And then we would just go out to the classrooms and we would collect these data. And what I've also started to do is with my online groups where I have many classroom teachers, I just put out a call at the end of each class saying, hey, if you're willing to have your students added to the site, drop me an email. I've already had a couple of teachers already who said they're willing. One of my goals is to make it more diverse. So we started out, we were kind of stuck with the local area, right, where most of the ELL students tend to be Latino. And so we want to get something more representative of the diversity of English language learners. So we'll be adding more ELLs from places like China, Korea, Vietnam. Here in the local area, Lafayette, those tend to be the children of professors. And so a much different kind of ELL student than your typical immigrant students from Central and South America and from Mexico. But we also have a huge refugee population here from the Middle East, from Afghanistan, from Iran, Iraq. We also have a lot of Burmese refugee students, and so Chen, Karen, Karenese speakers. And so as I worked with the teachers in the course and they've done the case studies of their students, I can see who's working in the schools that have quite a diversity of English language learners. And those are the ones that we'll be going out to next and create more and more profiles. And what I would eventually love to do is more like crowdsource it, right? So if we can just provide the basic templates in the schools and say, hey, teachers, here use how you can create these profiles of your own students and then submit them to the website. And that way we don't have to physically go out and do the videotaping ourselves. So we'll just see where it goes. I hope that people find it to be a useful resource and something they'd like to contribute to.
That's fantastic. I want to just copy the whole thing and like do it again, but I need some research assistance. Or maybe it's something that we get TESOL to support us. And because I certainly could offer you any language in the world right here in New York.
Oh, I bet.
And it would just be fantastic, like to make it a community effort among us teacher educators. We could all use these resources if we can. And then we have people in Lebanon. We have international settings. We get EFL samples.
Yeah.
We should just get TESOL to give us some money to do this. It's a good idea.
That would be fantastic.
We have another.
So it is very much. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's still very much in development. So as anyone has suggestions for improvements or whatever, we're very open to suggestions. So
okay, yeah, I think it's a rich opportunity there. We set a question about WIDA. How does WIDA intersect with what you do? How does it, I guess, influence your curriculum?
great question. So Indiana was kind of late to the WIDA game, and so it's very new to our teachers. And so it's become a major emphasis within our program. So every single course is going to touch on one or two different aspects of WIDA. But the reality is these teachers are going to be responsible for implementing the WIDA ELP standards. A lot of them are going to be in the position where they're doing the screening tests and preparing them for the Access 2.0. So we make sure that our courses prepare them to do that. So just one example, when they do the case study and they collect a writing sample, I have them assess that using the WIDA rubric. And a lot of the courses, when they do lesson plans, part of that lesson planning is to create a WIDA model performance indicators to show how they would differentiate that instruction for ELLs at different proficiency levels. And that's really, we've had a really good response to that. And of course, WIDA is now in over half the states of the country. And so we hope that as people start to come into our program from other states, that they'll also find that very applicable to what they're doing as well.
Yeah, I wonder, just to build on that, I hope no one on here is offended, but, you know, of course, New York doesn't need it because we have to like do everything from scratch, but
Like Texas.
except for TPA. So one of the challenges I have found in methods or other courses using WIDA especially for content teachers with low language awareness, it doesn't give them a granularity of language objective that you are really looking for on an ESL lesson.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you find that as well? And where do you go with that? Because sometimes I feel like WIDA makes it almost simple for them to say, the students will, they'll read for, they'll find evidence to support the claims, which is just Common Core, basically. There's nothing scaffolded or changed. Is it in the differentiation? Even there, how do you find that piece in terms of supporting the language?
I find that all teachers, even our quote-unquote ESL teachers, really struggle to write good model performance indicators and indicate how they're going to differentiate that instruction. But I think the emphasis on that has been helpful, at least in terms of getting to think in those terms, that they don't just have one accommodation for ELLs and then one for non-ELLs, that they really have to pay attention to those proficiency levels and also, the other kinds of things. What I find, too, is that the longer they're in the program, the more they learn about language and the other issues, then the more foundational knowledge they have to bring into that kind of differentiated instruction. And it's something they're going to, be addressing and mastering as they go. So, I don't feel bad if they can't write perfect NPIs by the time they leave my program. I'm just happy that they know what they are and that they're sensitive to the fact that, yes, there's different levels, and yes, I should be doing something to address some of those different levels and thinking about how to help them progress to the next level. So if we can get them out the door with that understanding, then we've made a lot of progress.
I know. At the beginning of your methods course or in your book, what do you think is a good tool to help teachers do that diagnostic piece that we usually do at the beginning of methods, where you go out and you do just try to place kids on a level? Because I see that website has some of that, the oral language matrix and how do you, because I always find it hard to get them to do those diagnostics. What do you suggest for that?
Good question. So we have them start by looking at the student's official English proficiency level. And then when they do those different diagnostic formative assessments like the Solomar, the running records, we have them explicitly compare that to the official level. And then sometimes they find that, hey, they're actually much higher than that official level, or they're much lower, or they really surprised me. And then based on that assessment information is then how they do their lesson planning. And so we kind of drive that message home that you plan your lessons addressing the specific strengths and needs of the students linguistically and academically. And so that's kind of how we try to structure those field experiences.
Does your state have a language assessment diagnostic that's mandated?
Yes, so before it was Lost Links, and now as part of WIDA, WIDA has its own screener that they would administer at the beginning of the year. And then that'll give them a specific, it's quite detailed. They'll give them an overall language proficiency level, and then they'll break it down by listening, speaking, reading, writing, literacy, oral language, comprehension, and several different ways.
Okay.
But then they have to know what to do with that once they have it.
I know. That's the next big part of methods, right? Are there any other last questions, thoughts, anything you want to post in the box, or if you'd like to unmute and say anything more?
I was going to thank Sama for the information about Lebanese American University.
Yeah.
So thank you for the link about the programs that are there. And then Niakos mentioned, yes, that Indiana, we now have a dual language immersion initiative. And so I'll just note that we have a lot of work here to do in Indiana now to make sure that we're producing bilingual teachers who can go in and teach in those dual language programs. So I'd love to interact with you at some point to see what you guys are doing at Indiana University and see how we can help support the initiative.
Yeah, it's a great place. You actually connect someone in your own state on here. And for the, I guess there's a last question about adult context. What parts of your text might be helpful when you're training teachers to work maybe in IEPs?
That's great. And what's interesting is when I I wrote this book when I was at the University of Texas at San Antonio, where we did have about a third of the students were more or less IEP, higher education type people. And when we take the course where my book was used as a textbook, I would warn them the book really does have more of a K-12 focus. And every single one of them would tell me at the end of the course that they found everything applicable to working with their adult students. And so I was always happy to hear that.
That's great. That's great. The book title again is, I'm not going to say it right.
Foundations for Teaching English Languages. I can put it back up here.
I'll put it back up there for a second.
There we go.
Okay. And here we go. Wonderful. There's the book, Foundations for Teaching English Language Learners. Will you be at TESOL this March, Wayne?
Unfortunately, I won't be, but Caslon Publishing will be there. They'll have their booth, and you can find the book there,
Okay.
as well as a lot of other really helpful textbooks that they publish. So,
Yeah, they're a nice publisher, and they're very L-friendly. So it's nice to chat with them actually at the conference.
yeah, they're fun to talk to.
Yeah, and so we're pretty much out of time. I'm going to just double check if there's any last questions that were posted. I think we're okay. Last chance. You got Wayne Wright here on the hot seat. Come on, people. How do we get access to?
Good. So, excellent. So, I guess you'll be posting this presentation.
Yeah.
And then you'll see the
Listener.
links that are posted there. I'll just note for the companion website, if you buy the book, and if you're an instructor, you'll get it for free, of course. You'll get the access code there. Or if you just want to check out the website without the book or the access code, you can actually purchase access to the website. The Purdue ELP site is completely free, and you'll also, again, see that link there in the presentation. So I encourage you to check it out.
Yeah, I got to get with you on that, Wayne. We got to cook something up from that. That's just,
That'd be fun, yeah.
That's such a great resource. And it's amazing how hard it is to find things like that. Stanford had a project with a very obscure website that has L bilingual classrooms, elementary, with observation rubrics attached to the videos where you can click on ESL method practices and it'll bring you to the spot in the video where that's being enacted. And that's like,
oh, wow,
a grant, and I stumbled across it. But there's some really great resources out there. So, Michael, thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Wayne, so much for your time. Tabitha, Sama, I don't know if Neokos is really your name, Noni, Lottie, Erica, Christine, Sherry, all around the country and even from Lebanon. The beauties of technology, so we can connect a little more. And the teacher education intersection listserv is ending on Halloween, October 31st, and it's moving to something called My TESOL, which is, we're not too sure how that's going to be, but hopefully it'll be even better and have more of a chance for us to interact. So keep that coming, and I will find that Stanford website and send it to everybody too. Okay, take care. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Wayne. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.